Hello, everybody. My name is Mark Sage. I'm the Executive Director of the AREA, which stands for the AR Enterprise Alliance, a global membership-funded not-for-profit alliance helping to accelerate the adoption of enterprise AR. And I'm super excited and honored to be moderating this panel today with two industry experts. And we're going to be talking about transforming the workforce through connected devices. Hoping to have a wide-ranging, I'm sure we'll have a wide-ranging discussion. But for you listening to this, please introduce yourself through the chat functionality. And as important, if not more important, please feel free to ask any questions as we go through. We will keep the questions for the end, and we promise that we will respond to all of them. But it's great to get that interaction and get your kind of thoughts and questions as well. So please introduce yourself through the chat. But the question, introduce yourself through chat and the questions through the Q&A section. So enough of me, let's get introducing the expert on our today's panel. So first, Eckhard, I'd like to introduce yourself, your role, and how you initially got involved in the digital manufacturing space. It'd be great to get some background there.
Yeah, Eckhard Eberle, happy to introduce myself. So I'm running the process automation business within Siemens. So this is more or less everything from sensor to communications, control systems, but all software packages like COMOS, like GPROMs, like CIMIT, all that, what is necessary to work on the process plants and the process automation piece. And this is what I'm doing for now 8 years. So starting with Siemens, I think it was exactly now 30 years ago, in very early, and I started with power plant automation. So very early in process industries, maybe a little bit easier because it's more cooking water, but on a sophisticated way. I was doing in engineering and sales. I was in a joint venture in China for several years, and then moved back into the central consulting organization within Siemens. So I did 6 years on consulting, and then starting in 2005 in our organization, which is called Automation and Drive. So everything which is about industrial automation, starting with very simple transformers, then contactor business, then the classical SIMATIC business, very much with automotive industries and the discrete industries. And then from 2015 on, taking on the lead for the process part. How did I get to digitalization and this? Like when the activity started in 2012 and 13, particularly in Germany with the Industry 4.0 activities were very much involved and started the discussion what this would mean to industry. I was involved very much in what would it mean for the portfolio for us, what would be our offering, but also how the industry would evolve over the time. And particularly on 2015 on, we asked the question also together with our customers, what would digitalization mean to process industries? Because at a later point in time, the industry started discussing that over there, and a lot of concepts which were coming out, whether this is module type package modularization, whether this is and now more open architecture things, and a lot of other things, as well as digital worker and as well as getting connected into the field, are things which drive me very much around and where I have a lot of fun in participating, but also supporting our customers to find the right solutions.
Fantastic. So a really wide, and congratulations, 30 years at Siemens. That's a massive achievement.
I never would have thought.
That's amazing. Indeed,
always interesting task. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think again, one of the bits I'm really interested in is that the range of different roles. I really think it brings a different view and expertise, but understanding the customer, which I think is really important in any of this digitization part as well. So we'll come back to that as we carry on the conversation. Fantastic. Mayo, I can perhaps ask you to introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you, Mark. I'm Emanuele Borazio. I'm the CEO and founder at WeAR, an Italian startup focused on extended reality. We think extended reality is virtual reality, augmented reality, and the more recent, newest mixed reality are technologies supporting Industry 4.0. Before starting a company, I was a contract professor of satellite remote sensing and geographic information system here in Ferrara, a town near in the north of Italy. By the way, it's a very old university, founded in the 14th century, and Copernicus studied here. The focus of my research was to better catch, to better retrieve environmental data in order to create digital maps. I noticed, for example, in building yards, in construction site, very problem concerning retrieving data from paper map. So I started using augmented reality as a simple tool in order to distribute data outdoor without a paper. So, remember in 2009, it was a very, very important year for augmented reality because on the market appeared the very first smartphones with electronic built-in created for augmented reality, in particular the GPS, gyro, accelerometer, etc., in order to present digital data directly on the user side. So this is for me not a technology, but a form of a new communication. So you can merge real item with the digital counterpart. So I started in 2014 this company, WeAR, expressly dedicated to the industrial augmented reality. So our mission is to foster digitalization of little companies to corporate. And our vision is the use of XR as a simple interface to interact with complex data of the Industry 4.0 paradigm.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And the bit I really like about that, and we'll come back to this in a big way, is about solving a real business problem. I'm a huge fan, and I think we all understand, and I'm sure the listeners do, that it's not technology for technology's sake. It's about solving real business problems. Just a little bit of an add-on from kind of my history and my work as well. I actually spend a lot of my time, well, initially in utilities, but then in the mobile business. Spent 15 years there, but for the last 7 years now, been running the area. And what I really like about the organization is that we're bringing together the users of AR. So we have members like Boeing, Medtronic, Welsh Water, across all sorts of different industries, but also the providers of technology, which range from the big guys like the Microsofts and the Magic Leaps and the Novos, and from the software side, PTC and other kind of platform players, but right the way down to startups as well. And then the third kind of group are a combination of what I call, well, non-commercial organizations, so government agencies, research institutes, universities, and standards organizations. So in just bringing that ecosystem together to learn from each other, to develop that best practice, to make sure that companies don't make the same mistakes as other companies do when they're trying to deploy these digital solutions, kind of really helps the ecosystems. And as we move forward, beginning to focus more on the kind of interoperability, say best practice and standards as well is going to be an important element to just mature the industry as we move forward. So a little bit more, and then again, you can have a look at the AREA website. It's www.thearea.org. Anyway, let's get back to problems, okay? And you've both got a huge amount of experience, so it'd be great, and perhaps Eckhard, we'll start with you first. So what problems are companies and its kind of workforce are overcoming by successfully deploying digital solutions? And I've deliberately left that open to cover lots of different areas, but it'd be great from your experience and the work that Siemens are doing to really understand the problems that companies are solving.
Yeah, and this is a very important piece, because at the end of the day, everybody's looking how we are getting better, in what kind of a way, and it's not self-purpose. And this hasn't been on the automation side, and this will not be on the digitalization side. And when you're asking customers, they always will look for some kind of a business case, how it pays off, what they are investing. And I think this is exactly what they are looking at. So maybe in my view, there are 4 topics which I would cluster and see where are the challenges. One thing is, for sure, the pressure on operational performance. I mean, we are in a global environment. We have a competition all over the place. Everybody wants to get better. So this means operational cost, maintenance cost, and everything around, including increasing the uptime, making sure that the plants are running, that the yield is very high. So all these topics are driving very much on productivity, and at the end of the day, the cost position and the performance position of a plant. Otherwise, nobody will look at if they do not have any kind of, and in the moment where we are coming with sustainability discussion, less resource consumption, less energy consumptions. These are the things on the performance side. Maybe a second part, what is very, very important, and it's on our topic here, it's our workforce. And there are several effects what we are seeing. One thing is we have an aging workforce. I also belong to this very strong years of lots of people who are coming on the market, and now soon or later within the next 10 years are going to retire. So we will lose a significant number of workforce, in particular also in plants, in factories, which have a lot of tacit knowledge. So this means they take along a lot of information which is even maybe not in systems yet, and we have to make sure how this is how to come this, and this is really one of the challenges, a loss of information. And I talked with customers, I mean, cannot hold the name, but I saw customers in the German area on the chemical plant, which were preparing and working on a shutdown, and people didn't know how to make the shutdown anymore. They were running down the plant far too fast, and they had a lot of damages because just these people which were knowing but didn't document how to ramp down a plant, this specific plant, were really gone and already retired. And I think there are some other effects which comes in, is that some companies are going to outsource their activities. Some companies are going to centralize activities. This all somehow challenges the information and the knowledge which is within the people. So topic number 3, we have a lot of information, tons of information, but honestly in tons of systems. So how collect reasonably and providing the relevant information at the right time to the right person is something which is a huge challenge. Many cases, because of different acquisitions, companies have been changing out of different decades, so systems are not compatible. So I think these are the things where customers are in many cases challenged. And the other thing is, when we want to get, and this is number 4, more sophisticated in operating plants, the complexity raises, the number of closed loop is raising, how you operate the plant is raising. So a constant permanent change of the plant is something which is very normal. It's not that very few plants where you switch it on and run it and don't do anything anymore. And I think this is something which requires a high flexibility, but this flexibility has also an impact on teams, on systems, and everything which is behind. So just maybe these 4 topics, in my view, would be ones which drive very much on the complexity and on improving, looking for improvement.
Thank you, Eckhard. That's really insightful. I've got a few questions, but I would like Emmanuel to talk a little bit about the problems that he's seeing, and then I'll ask some questions afterwards.
Oh, I totally agree with Eckhard, because the main problem is the lack of information of workforce. I want to tell you about my company is situated in a very important area with in very big enterprise. For a few kilometers from here, there is Ducati Motors, Lamborghini Autos, and Ferrari. They are data-driven enterprises. But for example, we are still working with the major electric company here in Italy. They have, for example, the latest Siemens appliance concerning IoT, etc. But the problem is the workforce on the field, because there is a lack of mobile and wearable support. And the lack of dedicated software is very complex to have access to the large amount of data created by IoT predictive maintenance, artificial intelligence. And it's very important to reach everyone. For example, young people with no seniorship, with no support from advisors. So I think the main problem is the lack of information during operation, like maintenance, repair, emergency procedure, or the post-sale service, for example. You sell a big machinery all over the world, and how to get the third part involved in maintenance to get the right information in real time. So this is the question. Okay, the tech is present, the digitalization is going very well, but the problem is how to retrieve this information and present to the right people at the right moment.
It's a great point. I often say it's about getting the right information for complex and infrequent tasks at the right time. You know, if you do something the same all the time, then actually probably some of these digital solutions doesn't help. You have a repetitive part, but there are obviously a huge amount of tasks that you have to do very infrequently. Eckhard's example of closing down a plant is a perfect example of that. And let me ask another question. Sorry, Eckhard, please.
If I could add on this, I think we are sitting on 90% of brownfield. I mean, this is then what we are seeing: grown plants with grown equipment, with grown documentation, maybe in paper or even not at all, or maybe partially documented. And I think this is exactly what is driving this complexity and makes things not that easy to handle if you even want to step into the discussion and want to step into solving these problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit later about some of the challenges, so we'll come back to that. Before I ask another question, just a reminder for the listeners, please introduce yourself on the chat, but more importantly, I guess, is start to ask those questions. Be really excited to answer or get the experts to answer any questions. Let me ask another question I get asked a lot in this kind of space is, what, or is there an industry that's leading this digitization? Perhaps, Eckhard, let me start with you and have your thoughts.
You know, as I'm representing the process industries, I would start with these ones, but also there are studies which show that the perception that process industries are very slow and do not move that very fast is wrong. Yeah? So we, starting from the beginning, the thinking of engineer a plant, design a plant, and having a concrete planning how to go approach a plant is already for 30 years in process industries very strong, with P&IDs, clear documentation how to run a plant, which is big help if you want to digitize and want to even contextualize problems and challenges. So they've been already against the discrete manufacturing place, maybe in a certain advantage. So I would say at the moment what is moving very fast is biopharma, biochemistry processes. Customers are moving very fast here. We always thought that regulations like FDA, like good manufacturing practice would hinder them, and they perceived on themselves to move forward, but it is not the case. In particular with digitalization, you can put systems on top, which is leveraging a very strong core, which is stably running. And therefore, I think these are the industries at the moment which are running very fast. For sure, what is now accelerating and first time right is battery business. And you see all these giga plants going to be established to build batteries. So they are from the beginning on putting a lot of digital tools in and driving this very much forward. The classical industries, I would assume there are some advanced ones, in particular in the discrete industries like automotive industry, which have been talking for quite a while on cyber physical systems, how to make them running. So they are a higher flexibility on the production supported by these digital tools, whatever it is, and how it can be implemented is also very advanced. So a variety out of the different industries, but at the moment, maybe fastest moving is biochem and biopharma, in my view.
Thank you. Emmanuel, you mentioned some amazing brands. Almost made me feel jealous, those the companies you're working with. In your experience, is that the fastest moving industry, or are there other ones you see? You know, Eckhart's a slightly different view. What's yours?
Oh, I think I agree, obviously, with Eckhart, because I think the biotech is really searching for a new way to treat data, to retrieve data, etc. But I think another market very interesting for, in particular for extended reality, is the space market, the aerospace sector, because you know, every pilot has an head-up display, okay, in order to better pilot a jet, and his brain is already formatted to retrieve information from the real world, for example, the horizon, okay, the level of the horizon, but also digital information retrieved via head-up display. So people working in aerospace sector, I notice, because I have a little POC with people from some companies connected with the space, are very keen on understand information, virtual information onto real item. So I think they are very smart and very fast adopting this kind of technology.
Yeah, thank you. I have to say my stock answer to that question is that actually the industry is not overly important. Actually, some of the problems that we solve through the digital worker and digitization are actually quite relevant across all sorts of different industries. If we look at some of the ones that we've been focusing in the AR space, things like remote assistance, step-by-step guide, it could be any industry. So, you know, I think it's important that if we begin to develop, and we've been working on a set of generic use cases, they obviously need to be potentially changed slightly for industries, but they're relevant. They're solving some real problems. Before I go to my next question, I think there's a really important question that's come in from one of our listeners. So thank you for that. And I'm going to do it. And again, a reasonably quick answer if possible, but what is a connected worker? ? Eckhart.
Oh, you know, this is really a large this is a large definition which is possible. I mean, this is the same when I'm getting asked what is a digital twin, and I said, okay, a screw manufacturer can also provide a digital twin with the diameter and the torque and the material which is behind with the drawing. This is also a digital twin to a certain extent. It goes to a complete plant, and same so with the digital worker. I think it has been started with employees running in the plant, having mobile devices along in order to communicate. This was even for a long time not available. As I would say today, and looking into the future, for sure, employees are completely connected, have AR devices along, whether these are mobile or whether these are lenses. They have a complete access to the necessary information which they need to operate. They are supported with workflows in order to make sure that they are doing the right things. They are advised with safety regulations and supported in order to make sure that they do not any harmful things to them or also to others. So that then a most likely safe, professional and very fast operation is possible. And this is needed to be connected via the net, needed to be via the devices, most likely also with locating functionality that all the time you know where people are. And particularly in many cases, you see also that companies are observing health status of people or employees in order to make sure that they know that everything is okay on the site. Yeah. So this is in a short view.
Yeah. Emmanuel, can you add to that? Is there any other points you'd like to make?
Yes, I totally agree. And I want to add, in particular, robots are arriving. Maybe they can substitute humans in most tasks, dangerous or fatiguing task. But I think if you are a digital worker, you can control robots, you can transfer information. So I presume a robot cannot substitute in all your work if you are a digital worker, if you can interact with digital data. Okay, so I think we human must tend to become digital workers.
And I think this is something very important, if I could add on that, what Emanuele just was saying. I mean, coming from maybe from before the 90s, everybody was talking about SIM, computer integrated manufacturing. Everybody thought people would be complete out of the plant, the light will go out, everything will be automated. But this was not possible because you even cannot do it strictly. And over the time, with lean methods, with the things we were implementing and improving and combining automation together with the employees and making this in the best fit, and then moving now step by step in helping our employees, we see already today that the employee is in the center and is dirigent of the digital tools and the landscape, because they will leverage the intelligence of the plant. And in particular, the digital worker is exactly that. He is getting a lot of support and advice and can leverage on the tool landscape. At the end of the day, he's executing on a lot of things.
Absolutely, thank you. So again, thank you for people that are bringing the questions in. We will catch them at the end. Some people have been putting questions into the chat. If you can pop them over, copy them into the Q&A as well, that would be fantastic. So guys, we're probably going to have to go a little bit quicker. We're already halfway through our talk and there's still a couple of questions. Sorry, that's me, not you. So the next question I like to call "Show me the money." Okay, it very much is about the tangible and intangible benefits companies are already realizing by using connected devices and digitizing their workforce. Okay, so again, some examples from your work would be great. Eckhard, if I could start with you as well, please.
Starting with the numbers, I would assume maintenance, for example, with a digital worker, up to 30% what we could reduce in the effort in making maintenance far more efficient than that what we are doing. Second part, zero extra qualification. So all these education stuff which is needed to teach people is online available, and people get told during the process what to do. So this is a significant reduction of costs or avoiding of additional training costs. And the third one, which is really something what I believe is really a huge potential, is up to 25%. Having better insights and understanding about the status of a plant avoids a lot of downtime, a lot of security issues and this kind of stuff. And this, we see there up to 25%. We've been proven, and we've been going with a lot of customers through this process, mentioning maybe some of them. One is Skoda, one is Bayer. We are making a global rollout with Lanxess for the applications we are doing, and even in China, companies in the biopharmaceutical area, but also in chemical area, are implementing and see similar results. So I think this is something really which is tangible, and I think what drives this, it's very much on having much easier access to all the information, which in the past was very with a very high effort. You have all the information available on time, in real time, and actual. And I think what is really a significant step forward is getting away from paperwork and lists to check mark, but going with the devices is something which is really essential without any special qualification. I mean, one thing what is even also more important is the topic of safety and the safe operation of the plant. You get a complete new level of transparency, where you are, where the status of your plant, you know, you go far more towards predictive maintenance, and the service employees are even able to solve problems before they significantly arise or they're getting significant into the process. So I think this is something really which is making a big difference to that what has been done maybe before. Yeah.
Thank you. Emmanuel, let's jump over to you straight away.
Yes, I want to share some information concerning the usage of our first platform called Marco by our main customer. Marco is a platform allowing a company to share user manual via augmented reality. After 8 years of usage, they say 30% more in productivity in simple 3 tasks per day instead of 2. So you can speed up productivity, and also you speed up every task, avoiding errors, etc. Also, during training, the benefit is 50% more. So you can train people enough time using, for example, cheaper visor like Oculus Quest and so on. So because, for example, you can, in a metaverse, train people in a very natural way. People can remember the muscular memory, okay, doing an action, etc. So this is our very, very important benefit. The intangible is about anxiety. For example, people with a tool in augmented reality, an app can support during operation is less anxious. Imagine you first day at work and you have 2 leverage. One, you fix the problem. Another one, cut off the electricity of the city. Which is the real one? Take your phone, point at to retrieve information. So less anxious.
Yeah, and definitely we don't want to be cutting off the electricity for the whole city. So yeah, absolutely. Just a few comments, gentlemen. You know, within the area, we created an ROI calculator, a return on investment calculator, which again is available. Any thoughts on how companies can create that ROI calculator? You know, it's often quite difficult. You have to do some work. Any advice on how you've been able to measure this return on investment and what kind of things our audience should be thinking about before they kind of start or want to evaluate the potential benefits of this technology?
So maybe if I may start, there are some thoughts on baselining, which is a very important thing when you start in any kind of an entertainment and activity. We see a lot of teams getting into things, installing something and say, great, I get this information. And then the managers are coming and said, so what for? What is the benefit? Why do you need this information? And I think this is something which is significant to understand. Let's assume you have a large plant and you have 1,000 pumps. So you need to understand how much downtime do you have because of this pump, how much failures do you have, where do you install the right sensors, or even to make the inspections, how is the frequency. So if you get an understanding what's the cost of outages and downtime by non-production, you have a very clear benchmark on if you would reduce this by half or by 70% or so, avoid this, then you can judge and measure after installation how good you are and whether these things are getting implemented or not. So these are in many cases outcome based on avoiding non-conformance costs, which are not expected, or lowering the level of cost in order to shorten the downtimes, for example. And this is calculable because at the end of the day, you know very much what's the output of the plant, what's the cost for the material or how you sell it, and what would be the thing to recover on the plant and the effort to build it up again or to repair the stuff. Yeah.
And thank you, because I think your kind of initial comment about baselining what you do now and then measure it. And you're absolutely right.
Absolutely.
It's a step that's often missed out. It's often missed out. So thank you for that. Emmanuel, any kind of thoughts on how to measure return on investment, I guess, particularly in the AR space?
Yeah. In particular, there is a lot of KPIs, concerning the return of investment in industrial sector. But if I have to report the most important two of my customer, they want in how many minutes they fix the problem. And the second one is the first time fixed rate. So
Yes.
they don't want to return after to repair. So this is very, very important. You fix and the problem is done. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Fantastic point. Thank you. That it really is about saving time doing the task, but doing the task first, right? Yeah, first time, as you said. Before I go on to the next question, can I just add a few other things from my experience? So I mentioned the word intangible benefits. I think, Eckhard, you brought up a really good point at the start about the aging workforce in capturing their information or their knowledge, which is kind of slightly difficult to measure, but it's definitely a huge intangible benefit. The other one is about encouraging new workers into kind of industrial roles as well. And suddenly, with this new technology and the connectedness of it, it really does. It's, the youngsters are used to this. They're able to use it. They're able to work with it, and in fact, really want to use it as part of their role. So it's a great way of encouraging new people into the industry, which is going to be important as our aging workforce retire. The other point to just make, if it's okay, it's around, and we mentioned one of the kind of use cases being remote assistance. So being able to do some work, if something goes wrong in the factory, you don't have to wait until somebody turns up. They may have to drive, they may have to travel, they may even have to fly. So another kind of savings I can see within this digital space is CO2 savings. We're helping the environment as well as downtime, we're creating better uptime and making sure we do things first time. We're actually reducing the carbon footprint as well, which I think is another really good saving.
And if I could add on this, COVID-19 helped a lot in speeding up all these processes. We made a large number of factory acceptance tests, site acceptance tests remotely via camera. We had very few people then on site, and then customers could test or check with a direct connection to the systems in order to make sure that these things were running. Getting support via camera or via experts remotely is something which is a significant difference. And maybe in the past, you don't need to have each and every expert on each and every plant. So I think this is combining the topic back again to the digital worker, which is making a huge difference now. You can pool the knowledge.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you for that. And I think it's a really strong use case. So we've understood some of the problems. We've talked about some of the benefits that are being realized. But if it was as simple as that, we would see this everywhere. And as we well know, this is not quite at the moment the case. So I'd like to ask you both some questions about the challenges you need to overcome to successfully deploy digital solutions and create that digital worker. Okay, now this can be a wide-ranging piece as well. So, please feel free to just cover a few, and we can cover lots of the areas. But again, Eckhard, I'm going to start with you if that's okay.
I would mention maybe two topics which are very important by starting, which hindered a lot of customers to step in. One is missing documentation or not consistent documentation and information, which makes it very difficult. I've seen so many plants where you had folders of plant documentation and information, but you didn't even find the sensors in the way they were installed, maybe in the very beginning, nor were they documented. So I think this is a challenge when you are starting up, and customer companies as us also are working very hard in automating and making this more simple into coming into a world where this brownfield approach with missing documentation is something which is absolutely unique. And the second part I would assume is behavior and attitude and willingness to adopt to new tools, landscapes. The next generation will do anyway. They will even not accept the old way. But we still have a strong workforce within the 50s and the 40s, where not everybody is interested in adopting to new ways of working.
I'll come back to that because there's a question from the audience that goes into a little bit more detail, but I want to Emmanuel to have an opportunity to discuss some of the challenges you've seen and been able to overcome.
Yes, you know, last year Zuckerberg introduced the metaverse ecosystem. So nothing new. Virtual reality world, you can interact with other people, etc. Personally, I don't think metaverse is for consumer yet. Okay, but I think is a good platform in order to interact with digital twins, industrial digital twins, and other people with avatars. So we are developing some little metaverse for industrial purpose. And thanks to Siemens, we are working with the MindSphere ecosystem. It's a very important and very powerful platform concerning industrial IoT. And for example, you can interact with digital twins of apparatus, appliance, robots, and so on, with people in other cities, in other countries. So it's a new form to manage complex assets. Okay. For example, we have also a metaverse concerning Mars. You can interact with astronauts and robots rover on this Mars surface, okay, with real data from ESA, European Space Agency, National Space Agency, and so on. So is a new form to work, a new form of collaboration. And obviously, pandemic has contributed to speed up this process. By the way, 3 years ago, we created a metaverse. We don't name it a metaverse, okay? It was a virtual world. And we presented it with planes, with helicopters to an important defense contractor here in Italy. They say to me, oh, there are video games, don't worry. Okay, now they understand the importance of this digital world.
Yeah, you were before your time, Mayor, before your time. I just wanted, you know, I mentioned before there are a number of different barriers. So if it's okay, I just want to mention maybe some of the lower level barriers that I've seen. So things like the infrastructure, you know, connectivity. I know it's simple things, but, you know, we see certain places it doesn't have the Wi-Fi or any other connectivity support. I think, again, it's some of the least digitized companies, but it's still an issue. Another, we have different committees in the area focusing on some of these challenges. And another one for particular industries is security. When you start to use devices that has sensors and can, you know, take digital footprints and things like that. So there's a concern for some industries around security, and something needs to be thought about and developed to help make sure that the solutions are secure, but also from a human perspective, there are slight concerns about them being tracked and, you know, understand what they're doing. Eckhard, you brought a point at the kind of start around safety as well. And I think the more work that we do about making sure that the AR solution or connected solutions are safe and also help the worker, is we believe we have some more work to do there. But I come back to this question, and Eckhard, you brought it up, about changing people's mindsets about, you know, the end worker. We've identified that as a challenge, as a problem. Have you any advice or thoughts about overcoming that challenge and working with the workforce?
I mean, maybe you didn't need to start a complete cultural program for the organization, but I think it would help to have a healthy mixture of younger and senior people, because they can help each other. The senior ones have a lot of tacit knowledge on where are the problems, and the younger ones are far more interested in using tools and are open to new technologies, and this can leverage each other. And this is what we are driving very much, in having a good mixture in the teams in order to drive this. And this helps a lot. On the second part, I think that this is where we as manufacturers ask for is the easiness of use. I mean, the time where you got the documentation of 200 pages, which you need to read, or even to make endless trainings in order to come to conclusions how to operate or make use of equipment, software, devices, and AR functionality. This needs to be very easy to be handled, and more on a learning by doing thing than, I mean, who is starting reading today a handbook for a new iPhone or a new Samsung Galaxy? Nobody will do this. Either it works and you get used to it very fast, or you don't use it, or you buy another phone. So the thing is, and this is where we need, coming out of an industry which was very traditional in deterministic way of doing things and learning things, but also executing things, need to be more flexible. And this is ease of use, open equipment, open systems, but also able to integrate very fast via standardized and open interfaces. And I think these are the things which are making a difference when you really want to win customers to step into new approaches. When it's getting complicated, they step out. When it's getting too much effort, they step out.
Yeah, very good. Manuel, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit as one of the kind of questions, but do you think that the shop floor workers are actually worried that they're going to be replaced by devices? Is that a concern?
Yeah, 10 years ago, devices were very, very costly, and also software are non-usable. So normally the worker, the on-field worker, put on smart glasses and said, "Oh no, it's a problem for me, the technology." Okay. Now there are new user interfaces, new devices. The battery lasts for entire task during the day. So I think this is the year for mass adopting of augmented reality, IoT, big data. Also for a lot of reasons, the pandemic, the lack of expertise on the field, the problem to train people in few days. So I think now the adoption of this kind of technology is a must.
And, in terms of the advice, there are huge amount of devices and solutions out there. How would you go about implementing them into an organization? How would you deal with the worker side? And again, this is a question for both of you. How do you deal with the worker, but also the kind of C-suite? How do you convince them to invest in this technology? Maybe, Manuel, I'll ask you about the worker side. In your experience, deploying these solutions, how do you make sure the end users use it?
Yes, in our vision, the word is the simplify, because we start normally with a POC in order to test a particular software resolving a particular task. Then we can plan a scale up, a mass introduction. But I don't think you have to consider a technology as a mass market, okay? It is impossible to give a smart glass to every employee, okay? There are workers that need a particular smart glass to solve a particular problem, okay? But maybe the problem is to clusterize the need, clusterize the task, and solve that kind of operation. So this is our way, retrieving the problem, develop a solution, okay, and solve with on the market, on the shelf, electronic, like LiDAR on board, on a pad, on tablets, and so on.
Thank you, Manuel. And just before I ask Eckhard the question about convincing the C-suite, just a little insight from one of the members of the area. So Newport News Shipbuilding make those great big aircraft carriers that we see in Top Gun. They've been using AR with a tablet to basically check and evaluate that the work has been done correctly in each of the little kind of, it's basically made up of lots of different rooms. So the way that they implemented this technology is they started with the workers. They involved the workers at the very, very start of the project and chose the biggest technophobe, the person that really did not like technology, as the person to work with them. This was a 40-year veteran of the shipyard. Now, if you work with them and actually solve problems for that person, he actually became the biggest advocate of the technology because it solved real life problems for him. So I think my little advice, if you're trying to implement this, you know, work with the end users at the very, very, very start of the project. They should be your core customer, because if they get it and use it, then the rest of your project is in a much better state. Okay, hopefully people agree, but there's obviously different ways. Eckhard, I think there's okay at the kind of low level, the workers, but then there's a challenge of convincing the C-suite to invest in this. We've talked a little bit about it, but I think the question we've got is what kind of metrics hit home with these decision makers? What kind of things do you think you should be talking about in terms of developing that business case?
I mean, you need for each and everything a case, a use case, a reference. You need a business case. You need an ROI, and this is very simple. How much are you going to invest, and what is the outcome? So these are the very tangible results. KPIs mean return of investment, half a year, 1 year, 2 years. When it's getting above 3 years, it's getting already difficult in the discussion. Yeah. So I think these are the points where you see where C-level is very interested, what's in it for me. And they want to see it proven, because you can make a lot of slides and tell customers how exciting 20, 30, 35% are. They want to see whether this has been proven somewhere. So you need pilots, you need lighthouse projects where they are implemented, where customers and in many cases very innovative ones, which are open to test stuff out, where they can prove that the outcome is there, and then C-suite is willing to invest and step in because they see the payoff. Maybe there would be also some kind of intangible thing, what we've been discussing now a lot during the last hour. It's about the workforce, because also they fear over the time that they might lose workforce, which is maybe not the ROI case, but is a case that you have a motivated, healthy, and good working workforce. And I think this is something which is very difficult to judge via KPI, but is something which is important, even in particular in the future, with having less qualified people, but also less people at all available working in this environment. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. And some great examples. So guys, we're coming to the end of our session. I've been looking at, we've been answering some of the questions. Just to say thank you very much for your insights. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you again for Siemens for kind of answering this session. The questions will be answered to the people. So if we haven't got your question, apologies, but they will be answered. And now, if you'd like to, the next session will be around, what is it? Sorry, let me just get to it. Securing the connected factory of tomorrow. So thank you again, gentlemen. I hope you had a good session, and I wish you a great rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.